Let's talk about the first step that often determines whether someone remains trapped in heartbreak for years or finds a way to transform it into strength acceptance. When a relationship ends, the mind naturally fights the reality of it. We replay conversations, imagine alternative outcomes, and convince ourselves that maybe, just maybe, this isn't final. It's as if our hearts are bargaining with reality, trying to buy more time in a world that no longer exists. But here's the truth. Healing cannot begin until denial ends. Acceptance is the doorway to freedom. It does not mean that what happened is easy or that the pain disappears instantly. It means you stop pretending that things are different than they are. You stop resisting what is already true. When you look closely, denial is simply a refusal to face pain. It's the ego trying to shield itself from loss. But paradoxically, the more you deny, the more the pain controls you. Like a wound left untreated, it festers in silence. Acceptance, however, is like cleaning that wound. It stings at first, but it is the only way it can heal. By accepting reality, you take back your power. You no longer waste energy holding on to illusions or trying to rewrite the past. That energy can now be directed toward rebuilding, toward rediscovering who you are without the other person. Some people misunderstand acceptance as passivity, as though accepting means giving up or settling. But acceptance is not surrender, it is strength. It takes far more courage to face reality head on than to hide behind false hope. To accept is to say, yes, this hurts. Yes, this is not what I wanted. But this is what it is, and I will move forward from here. That kind of honesty with yourself is the seed of resilience. Think of it like this. Imagine carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. That stone represents denial, the refusal to let go. You might think that by holding on to it, you're protecting something precious, maybe even the relationship itself. But in truth, you are only exhausting yourself. Acceptance is the act of setting the stone down. You don't lose anything of real value by releasing it. What you lose is the unnecessary weight that was slowing you down. On a deeper psychological level, acceptance allows you to confront grief. Because breakups are not just about losing a person, they are about losing the future you imagined with them. And that future is something your heart invested in deeply. To mourn it is natural. But when you accept that this imagined future no longer exists, you open yourself to a new one. You stop clinging to a door that has closed and begin noticing the doors that are still open. Philosophically, acceptance reminds us of something essential. Life is constant change. Nothing is fixed, and no bond, however beautiful, is immune to time, circumstance, or human imperfection. That doesn't diminish the value of love. If anything, it makes it more precious, because knowing it could end one day reminds us to cherish it while it exists. When it does end, acceptance helps us honor what it was without becoming imprisoned by what it is no longer. Now, this is not to suggest that acceptance comes easily. It doesn't. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, or even years. But the shift begins with a decision to stop fighting reality. The more you resist, the more you suffer. The moment you stop resisting, the pain does not vanish, but it becomes bearable, and more importantly, it becomes transformative. In fact, many people look back years later and realize that acceptance was the moment their real healing began. They see it as the turning point, the place where they stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What can I create from this?" That question alone has the power to reshape your destiny. And so, when dealing with a breakup, acceptance is not just a psychological necessity, it is a spiritual act. It is aligning yourself with truth, and truth always liberates. You might not control what happened, but you control how you respond to it. You control whether this ending becomes your cage or your catalyst. So, if you find yourself holding on to denial, ask yourself this: what am I really afraid of? Most often, the fear is not of losing the other person, but of facing yourself without them. But here lies the greatest opportunity, because in facing yourself, you rediscover your strength, your independence, and your capacity to grow beyond what you thought possible. Acceptance is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new one. A story where you are no longer defined by what you lost, but by how you chose to rise. And so the challenge I leave you with is simple yet profound: stop bargaining with the past. Stop replaying scenarios that no longer exist. Look at reality directly, no matter how much it stings, and accept it fully, because only then can you move forward stronger. Acceptance does not erase the pain, it transforms it into power. After acceptance comes the stage that many people overlook, but it is the heartbeat of real healing, processing your emotions. A breakup is not only a separation of two individuals, it is the shattering of routines, the dismantling of comfort zones, and the collapse of expectations. In that void, emotions rush in like a flood. Anger, sadness, loneliness, confusion, even relief, they all show up, often in waves, and each carries its own weight. The mistake most people make is trying to suppress those feelings as if ignoring them will make them disappear. But suppressed emotions don't vanish. They bury themselves deeper, where they quietly shape your thoughts, your behavior, and your future relationships. To process emotions is to give them the respect they deserve. It means sitting with your sadness without rushing to escape it. It means acknowledging your anger without letting it consume you. It means allowing yourself to grieve without labeling it as weakness. Too often, people try to fast forward their healing journey, hoping to bypass the discomfort. They throw themselves into distractions, rebound relationships, or unhealthy coping mechanisms. But healing is not about speed, it's about depth. You cannot skip the pain. You must move through it. Think about the way our bodies heal from physical wounds. If you cut yourself, the wound has to go through stages: bleeding, clotting, scabbing, and eventually scar formation. You cannot rush those stages without risking infection or improper healing. Emotional wounds follow the same principle. If you deny them or rush past them, they linger under the surface, waiting to resurface when triggered. But when you allow yourself to feel fully, without judgment, without shame, you let the wound go through its natural process. Psychologically, this stage is critical because emotions are data. Every feeling you experience tells you something about your inner world. Sadness reveals the depth of your attachment. Anger uncovers boundaries that were crossed. Loneliness reflects the space the relationship once filled. By processing emotions, you learn from them. You begin to see patterns, not just in the relationship you lost, but in yourself, how you love, how you attach, what you fear, what you avoid. This kind of self-awareness is priceless because it prevents you from carrying the same unprocessed pain into your next chapter. Philosophically, embracing your emotions reminds us of our shared humanity. Pain is not evidence that you are broken. It is evidence that you are alive. To feel deeply is to be fully human. When you avoid pain, you also avoid growth. When you embrace pain, you turn it into wisdom. This is why great teachers, poets, and thinkers throughout history have written about heartbreak. It is one of the most profound initiations into self-discovery. But how does one practically process emotions? The first step is to name them. Words have power. When you say to yourself, "I feel abandoned," or "I feel angry," you begin to separate yourself from the emotion itself. You are no longer drowning in it. You are observing it. That space allows healing. The second step is expression. Write in a journal. Talk to a trusted friend. Pray. Meditate. Cry. Scream if you must. Emotions demand expression, and when you honor that need, they lose their grip on you. The third step is patience. Some days will feel like progress. Others like relapse. That's normal. Healing is rarely linear. The real danger is not in feeling too much. It is in refusing to feel at all. Unprocessed emotions have a way of distorting our perception. They make us cynical about love, suspicious of others, and harsh on ourselves. They whisper lies like, "I'll never be good enough," or "No one will ever stay." But these aren't truths. They are echoes of pain that hasn't been given its voice. When you process those feelings, you silence the echoes and reclaim the truth that you are worthy, that you are capable of love, and that one ending does not define your entire life. On a deeper level, processing emotions builds resilience. It teaches you that you can survive heartbreak, that you can endure the storm and emerge stronger. Every tear shed, every night endured, is proof of your inner strength. And once you know you can survive the worst, you live with a different kind of courage. You no longer fear loss in the same way, because you know loss does not destroy you, it transforms you. This stage, though painful, is sacred. It is the bridge between who you were in the relationship and who you are becoming without it. It is the place where your heart learns to beat again on its own terms, not tied to someone else's rhythm. And if you allow yourself to move through this process, honestly, you will not just recover, you will evolve. So, I leave you with this thought. Do not run from your pain. Do not bury it or disguise it. Face it with courage, process it with honesty, and let it teach you what it came to teach. Because emotions are not obstacles to healing, they are the path to it. And when you walk that path fully, you do not just move forward, You move forward stronger, wiser, and freer. One of the most overlooked consequences of a breakup is the way it shakes the foundation of your self-worth and identity. When you share your life with someone, especially for a long time, parts of who you are inevitably become intertwined with them. The way you spend your evenings, the little rituals of your days, even how you imagine your future, all of it gets connected to that relationship. So when it ends, it can feel like you've not only lost the person, but also lost a part of yourself. That's why people often describe feeling empty or lost after a breakup. It's not just the absence of the other person. It's the disconnection from the version of yourself you were when you were with them. This is why rebuilding self-worth and identity is not just helpful, it is essential. Without it, you remain stuck in the shadow of what was constantly measuring your value by a relationship that no longer exists. But here's the truth. Your worth has never been dependent on someone else's presence or absence. Your worth is not defined by who chooses to stay or who decides to leave. It is something inherent, something that can only be claimed and strengthened from within. After a breakup, many people fall into the trap of self-blame. They replay the past endlessly, picking apart every word, every action, asking what's wrong with me. But this line of thinking is dangerous. It confuses the end of a relationship with the idea of being unworthy. Yet the two are not the same. A breakup is often the result of misalignment, timing, or circumstances. Rarely is it a simple reflection of one person's value. Understanding this distinction is the first step toward rebuilding your identity. Psychologically, breakups can create what's known as identity diffusion. It's the sense of being unsure who you are now that the role of partner or lover has been taken away. This is why it's so important to consciously rebuild your identity rather than letting it drift. Ask yourself, who am I outside of that relationship? What passions, strengths, and values belong solely to me? What dreams did I put on hold that now deserve my attention? This self-inquiry is not about erasing the past, but about reclaiming yourself. Rebuilding self-worth also means redefining the voice inside your head. If the breakup has left you doubting yourself, you must learn to replace the voice of criticism with one of compassion. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It is discipline. It is the decision to treat yourself with the same patience and kindness you would extend to someone you love. Too often we punish ourselves for the ending as if harshness will make us stronger, but real strength comes from lifting yourself up, not tearing yourself down. Philosophically, this stage can be seen as an opportunity for rebirth. The end of a relationship is not the end of your story. It is the chance to rewrite it. Every human being goes through cycles of becoming, unbecoming, and becoming again. What you thought defined you has been stripped away, but in that space lies the possibility of discovering a deeper, truer self. In many ways, heartbreak forces you into a confrontation with your essence, the part of you that exists regardless of who walks in or out of your life. Practically, rebuilding identity can take many forms. It might mean revisiting hobbies you abandoned, investing in your career, building new friendships, or even traveling to unfamiliar places. Each step is not about filling the void, but about expanding your sense of self. The more you engage with life independently, the more you remember that your identity is vast, multifaceted, and never limited to one relationship. It's also important to recognize that self-worth is not something you prove to others. It's something you affirm within yourself. You don't need validation from a new partner, social media, or external achievements to know your value. External validation is fleeting. It can be given and taken away. Internal validation, however, is lasting. It comes from knowing who you are and standing firm in that knowledge, regardless of outside circumstances. When you rebuild your self-worth after heartbreak, something powerful happens. You stop approaching relationships from a place of neediness or desperation. Instead, you enter them as a whole person, not looking to be completed, but looking to share your completeness. This shift not only protects you from repeating old mistakes, but also elevates the quality of connections you attract in the future. The beauty of this stage is that it doesn't just prepare you for future love, it prepares you for life. Because when you know your worth, you approach every challenge, whether personal, professional, or relational, with confidence. You are no longer defined by loss, you are defined by resilience. So let me leave you with this: a breakup may take someone out of your life, but it should never take you out of yourself. Rebuilding your self-worth is not just about healing, it's about reclaiming your identity, rediscovering your strength, and rewriting your story on your own terms. Remember this, your value was never tied to who left, it has always been tied to who you are. And once you truly believe that, no breakup, no rejection, and no loss can ever break you again. When the dust of heartbreak begins to settle, when the tears are fewer and the silence doesn't feel as suffocating, there comes a moment where you must make a choice. Will you live in the shadow of what ended, or will you step into the light of what could be? Creating a future beyond the past is perhaps the most liberating and yet the most challenging stage of moving forward, because it requires more than just letting go. It demands that you consciously build again, with intention, with vision, and with courage. Too many people make the mistake of defining their lives by their losses. They let a breakup become the center of their identity, replaying old memories like a broken record. But life doesn't pause simply because your heart has been hurt. Time keeps moving forward, and so must you. The real power lies in understanding that your future is not a continuation of your past, unless you choose to make it so. You are not bound to repeat old chapters. You can write a new one entirely. This means asking yourself a question that is both frightening and empowering. What do I want my life to look like now? At first, the question might feel overwhelming because for so long, the vision of your life was tied to someone else. The vacations you dreamed of, the milestones you anticipated, even the home you imagined, it was all shared. But now, you have the opportunity to create a vision that is entirely your own. That's not loss, that's freedom. Psychologically, creating a future beyond the past is vital because it redirects your energy. Instead of investing all your thoughts into what was, you begin channeling them into what could be. Neuroscience even shows that our brains are wired to strengthen the neural pathways we use most. If you dwell on regret and longing, those pathways deepen. But if you focus on possibility, growth, and future goals, your brain literally rewires itself to support resilience and optimism. In other words, the future you imagine isn't just a dream. It's shaping the way your mind works right now. But this process requires intentional action. It's not enough to simply say, I'll move on. You must actively take steps toward a new life. That might mean setting fresh personal or professional goals, exploring passions you left behind, or surrounding yourself with people who lift you higher. A breakup often clears space in your life, and it is up to you to decide what fills that space. Will it be bitterness, or will it be possibility? Philosophically, this stage reminds us of the profound truth that endings are also beginnings. Every loss contains within it the seed of renewal. The tree sheds its leaves in autumn not as a death, but as preparation for spring. In the same way, a breakup clears the ground for new growth. If you only stare at the fallen leaves, you'll miss the opportunity to plant new seeds. The question is not, why did this end? The question is, what can begin because it ended? There is also a spiritual dimension to moving beyond the past. When you cling too tightly to what has been, you limit the unfolding of what could be. Life has a way of redirecting us, even through pain, toward experiences and people that align more deeply with who we are becoming. Trusting that process doesn't mean ignoring your hurt. It means believing that your story is bigger than one chapter. Practically, creating a future beyond the past might look like designing a vision board, journaling your goals, or even taking small daily steps that align with the life you want. It doesn't have to be grand at first. Sometimes it's as simple as learning a new skill, traveling somewhere unfamiliar, or reconnecting with old friends. Each action, no matter how small, affirms that your life is not defined by who left. It is defined by what you choose to do with the time you have now. The challenge is to resist the temptation of living backward. Nostalgia can be comforting, but it can also be a trap. The past will always have memories, but the future has potential. And potential is infinitely more powerful. The person you are becoming deserves your focus more than the relationship that is gone. So, when you stand at that crossroads after heartbreak, remember this. Moving forward stronger is not about forgetting the past, but about refusing to let it dictate the rest of your story. Your heart may carry scars, but scars are proof of healing, not weakness. They remind you that you survived, that you endured, and that you are capable of building again. Let me leave you with a thought that cuts to the core of this journey. Your past may shape you, but it does not own you. The future belongs to the choices you make today. Choose not to live in what was lost, but in what can still be created. Because the greatest revenge against heartbreak is not bitterness. It is building a life so full, so rich, so alive, that the pain becomes just one chapter in a much greater story of strength,